So we talked about multiplying and dividing integers on the last day. We're going to talk about adding and subtracting today. And there's lots of different ways of thinking about this. And I think I mentioned this on Tuesday. Later in this course, you will have access to your calculator. And if you're constantly making mistakes, adding and subtracting integers, multiplying and dividing integers or non-integers, then I will recommend get used to using your calculator all the time to check your work at least and be careful of your mistakes. Okay? But until then, challenge yourself to do it in your head, because if you can get there, and even if you weren't great at it last year in elementary school or whatever, it doesn't mean you can't ever learn it. You may eventually be able to get it and have it click. And if you can, it's going to be way easier for you to follow what's happening. We're going to be doing some lesson at some point, and I'm going to write down 7. And you're going to be like, why did he write down 7? Where did that come from? Because you can't do the mental math. And you might not know how I got that 7. But if you can follow the patterns and follow the computations, you'll be able to see where all the numbers come from. So it's really, really helpful. And there are different ways of doing these things. So, and I'm going to talk about a couple of different ways of visualizing what's happening with adding and subtracting integers. And I'm going to try to give you a little bit of a step-by-step way of doing it. But what it boils down to is you do have to come up with your own way that works for you. Okay? And you've got to get there. And that's when you're doing the individual practice. That's when you'll kind of be figuring that out for yourself. 3 minus 8. Hold on, I don't want an answer. How does this work? Like I said, there's different ways of thinking about it. If this was 8, I'm going to start with this actually, 8 minus 3. So just watch. You don't have to write any of this down. Okay, just watch. There's 2 ways we can visualize this on the number line. One way is I start at 8 and I go down 3, right? So I'm traveling down 3. 1, 2, 3. And we know 8 minus 3 is 5. Easy enough. This is what you did back in grade 2, maybe. You started learning subtraction, grade 1, something like that. And it was just, the numbers are all positive. Okay? So that's one way that you can think about it. Use a number line. The first number is where you start. The sign tells you which direction you're going. And the last number tells you how many. So a negative means I'm going to the left, and I'm going to go 3. So 1, 2, 3, and that's my answer. And that's if you're like counting on your fingers or something, you got 8 and you take 3 away. That's like kind of using that number line trick. Does that make sense? Pretty easy stuff, right? And so why is this question that we're looking at different? Because it's 3 minus 8. This is not a question you would have got till probably grade 7 or 8. Why is it different? Because we're taking a bigger number away. Before you even knew that there were negative numbers, you'd have said 3 minus 8, I can't count down 8. Right? So there's a couple of different ways. It's a little bit tricky to use a number line when you don't have one in front of you in your head, like counting this way. So what we can visualize a little bit better is what we call a double number line. So tell me if you've seen this before. If I'm going to go down 8, I'm going to go down 3. That takes me to 0. And then what do I have to do? Well, I have to go down 5 more, because I've gone down 5 and gone down 3, and that's down 8 total. And that's something that you can do in your head. Okay? So I always go to 0, and then I go down whatever's left and how much that I have to take away. And that's the same as going down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Going down 3, going down 5 more. And if you got -5, good work. It is -5. You might think, well, 8 minus 3 is 5, but I'm taking the bigger number away, so that's where I get the negative from. Like there's different ways of thinking about it. I don't want to say too many different things because it can get complicated. Any thoughts about that? Any ideas? Anybody think about it in a different way? Okay. So how do we do a question like this? I would not do a question like this in steps. I would do it all at once. I would start at -3. Start here. The plus sign is telling me I'm going to the right, so I go up 1. And then the negative sign here, or -4, is telling me I'm going to the left, so I go left 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I end up at -6. The reason why I like the number line way is because that's actually what's happening. Like when you're adding and subtracting these integers, that's actually what you're doing, is starting here and counting up and then count how far do I get up this way, how far do I go back down. And notice no steps are required for this. You just write down the answer. I'm just going to go back a minute and I'm going to say there's another way you can visualize subtracting in particular. If I do 8 minus 3, that's like the distance between 8 and 3. This is the other way that we sometimes think about subtraction. And it's interesting that you probably do this and you didn't even know it. Like if you do 50 minus 47, what's 50 minus 47? 3. But you didn't count down 47, did you? You just thought there's 3 between them. So you're looking at, here's the 8, here's the 3, and there's 5 between them. So 8 minus 3 is 5. Subtraction we also think about as the distance between two numbers. Isn't that true? And that can be useful. Sometimes even with negative numbers, that'll be useful. You see that in a few moments. So this is what I mean. There's different ways of thinking about this. Number line like this helps make it visual. You could draw your own number line to solve these questions. To do 3 minus 8, so on the test, even though you didn't have a calculator, you could do this. Start at 3, go down 3 to 0, then go down 5 more. So I've gone down 8 total, and I end at -5. Okay? So you could visualize adding and subtracting integers like that. Okay, let's do a couple more. I know a lot of you have already done these. So -1, I'm going to start here. I'm going to go up 6, which is up 1, then up 5 more. Then I'm going to go down 10. So from there, I'm going to go down 5, then down 5 more. Then from there, I'm going to go down 2 more. And our answer should be, did anybody get this? -7. Did you get that already? Good. Okay, last one is, I start at 13. Uh-oh, this one doesn't go to 13. It's pretty close, though, so we can make that work. And I'm going to go down. This is easy. I go down 1 and then down 5 more. So from 12 down 5 is 7. It's to 7. And then I'm just going to go down 2 more. And how many people got 5 for that one? We don't need those number lines now. And here's the next type that we want to learn how to do, which is called double sign. When you have 2 signs, so I'm going to try to give you a rule. Here's how it's going to work in this room. Yes, there are different ways of solving problems. And if you think about it in a different way, that's fine. Okay? If your form is wrong, though, there's a reason why it's wrong. And if you get that feedback on a learning goal, it's not about, well, why can't I do it my way? And I think I talked about this. Communication is important, and you're also learning to communicate mathematically. So you have to trust me that there's a reason why. You always got to remember, I know what's coming in grade 10. I've taught it lots of times. I know what's coming in grade 11. I know what's coming in grade 12. So what might work in grade 9 won't work later as it gets harder. So we're trying to give you proper form, proper steps that will always work no matter how hard things get. Okay? So, but in some cases, if you're doing it differently, that's okay. But what I'm going to do and what I kind of see as my job is to at least give you one sort of step-by-step way that you can do it. And that's what I'm going to give you with this. So if you notice that this says, take care of any brackets, and I'm going to show you how, then you're going to be left with a number line question. So you might want to write that down because that will always work. Does that make sense? And then if you write down a few of those questions so that we can get started on them, that's good. You gotta close that.
I don't have any pen and paper, so just do it.
So here's how we're going to take care of the double sign. See how this has two signs. Don't write this down. I'm just going to scribble for a minute. That's what we mean by double sign. Sometimes you'll see it like this, although I don't like that as much because I can't tell if there's just like, that was supposed to be one minus sign and it got a little bit erased, or if it's two. So you will notice as a standard, we put brackets around the second one. But that doesn't always happen, okay? I'll be upfront with you. There are some worksheets, old worksheets I've seen, and I know some teachers who will, on occasion at least, write it like that. It's probably, if it was plus and a minus, it's a little bit easier to tell, but still, as a standard, you should probably have brackets around the second one. The only reason the brackets are there are for clarity, okay, are to show us what's happening. Notice that this is different from this. This is not a double sign question. Yeah, there's two signs, but they're on different numbers. So this is, when we're talking double sign, we're talking if I'm subtracting a negative. Who knows what you do when you're subtracting a negative? Anybody remember?
Two negative signs, I guess. One positive.
That's exactly right. So you actually end up adding. So we're going to show two steps with this, and I'm going to ask you all to try this right now. Some of you might be able to do it in your head, but it's going to help us down the road to remember how to do this. Two negatives becomes a positive. And look, folks, both negatives are gone, and now I only have one sign. A common mistake would be to do this, because it's a -6, and it's two negatives, so I'm adding, so now I add -6. No. Subtracting -6 is not the same as adding -6. Think about that. That doesn't make any sense. So we got to take two signs, and turn it into one. The good thing is, it's the same rule as multiplying and dividing. Two positives makes a positive. Two negatives, we already talked about, makes a positive. Positive and negative makes and negative and positive makes a negative. So this is the same rule. But again, I want to remind you, eyes up here, everybody look. It's not how it works for questions like this or questions like this, -4, -6. This is a number line question. I'm starting at -4 and going down 6. Number line question, number line question, number line question. These have double signs because there's two signs in front of the same number. Minus -6, plus -3, minus +2. So an easy way of doing questions like this is by getting rid of the brackets using that rule, and then doing the number line question, especially if you get good at the number line one. So what's 4 plus 6? 10. That's easy to do. Now I'm going to do one more thing, then we're going to try a few of these, and then we're going to be done. So I want you to put your pencil down and watch. Why in the world would 4 minus -6 be 10? Why? Why would subtracting a negative mean that you're adding? What do you think?
Because both negatives turn into positives, so it would be 4 plus 6.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's how we do it. Anybody have anything else to add? You had your hand up. You were going to say the same thing? But like, what about negatives makes it work out that way? So that's the rule your teacher tells you to do. Good for you for remembering it and doing it. Why though? And sometimes if you don't understand why, math gets really hard. You're just trying to memorize. It's hard to learn new things. It's hard to problem solve on your own. So I'm going to try to show you quickly why. It was 4 minus negative 6, right? What did I say was the other way you can think of subtraction? Anybody remember? We just talked about it.
The difference between the two numbers.
Yeah, or the distance between two numbers. So what is the distance between 4 and negative 6? Well, 4 is over here, and negative 6 is over there. So if it's distance, isn't that 6 plus 4 to find the total distance between those two numbers? Now, I haven't used that rule to get rid of two signs. I'm actually thinking of that as negative 6. This is what's really important. Numbers, what is a number? That's a hard question, isn't it? What is a number? Well, it can be thought of as, you have 5 apples or you have 6 apples. If I have 6 and you have 5, I have more than you. So like you're counting things, right? And you can think of it that way. But in mathematics, as we start to get more abstract, and by that I mean we're not talking about apples anymore. We're talking about numbers. A number is a position on a number line. That's what it is. A number is a position on a number line. Fractions have positions. Decimals have positions. And numbers are bigger or smaller than other numbers because of where they fall on the number line. And you know that. You've talked about that. When you first learn about numbers, the first thing you do is what number is bigger than what? Back in like kindergarten or something, right? So if I think of 4 as a number on the number line and negative 6 as a number on the number line, and I'm subtracting 4 minus negative 6, isn't that a neat visual of why that would be 10? I think that's cool. I think that helps us kind of remember that this is different from negative 4 minus 6. Okay, so let's do a few of these. We already did that one. I want you to try the next one on your own, and I want somebody to tell me not what the answer is, just what the first line would be after you've handled any double signs. All of these questions are going to be 2 steps because we're going to show our work. So for this one, who can tell me what the first step is? Sammy, is that a hand up? Go for it. So the positive and the negative become a? So you said the plus and the minus changes to a minus. I'm going to stop you there. This is our rule, and this looks like, to me, it's using this one right here. A plus and a minus becomes a minus. Remember, we're only using this for when we have 2 signs side by side. So what happens to the negative 8? Nothing. We leave it alone. Be careful of that. The 8 only has 1 sign in front of it. It doesn't change. The only thing that changes is those 2 signs turn into 1. Does that make sense? And what is negative 8 minus 3? Nice, negative 11. Again, what's the distance between negative 8, which is way over here, and 3? Well, it's going to be 11. Now, the fact that it's negative is kind of complicated, so I'm not going to worry too much about that. But, right, you're going one way for the 8 and the other way for the 3. And that's why you get that working out. What about the next one? First step. Who wants to do that one for me? Yes, is it Haley? Go ahead. So negative 10 minus 2. So the 10 only has one sign, so it stays negative. And it looks to me like minus positive 2, a minus and a positive becomes a minus. So negative 10 minus 2, and that works out to negative 12. I get this question every year in a lot of classes that I teach. What's the difference between a minus sign and a negative sign? Is that minus 2 or is it negative 2? Minus, okay. Does anybody want to say anything different? Because the real answer is there's no difference. We think of this as a negative 2 as well as minus 2. It kind of depends on the context, depends on the way the question is. But you're going to see in particular when we get into algebra why we think of that as a negative 2, which means you're subtracting 2, but it's a negative. So it's really the same thing. People would think this is a positive sign and this is a minus sign because you're subtracting positive 2, but we really don't distinguish between a minus sign and a negative. Okay, try this next one. Oh, great.
First, there is a mandatory DECA meeting for all students attending provincials today, so please make sure you are in room 118 right at the start of lunch. Want to send a carnation to someone you love? Do so today and tomorrow. You can send it to anyone in the Waterloo Region District School Board for Valentine's Day. Carnations are being sold for $1.50 each. This next announcement is for any students wishing to apply to the co-op or SHISM program next year. Please attend a co-op SHISM information meeting at the beginning of your M6 period in Tassie Hall on Monday, February 11th. Important information and sheets about the programs will be detailed. You will have an opportunity to ask questions about either program, so please plan to attend if you're interested. This is a field trip reminder. The Beating the Odds conference for Black History Month is on Friday. Meet at the Dando doors at 7:20 a.m. Yes, you heard that correctly. That's 7:20 a.m. Check your Gmail for the reminder, and remember that there is a dress code in effect. If you have questions, see Mr. T in room 101. The GSA will be meeting in room 310 at lunch today. All are welcome. So start off semester 2 by making some new friends and promoting inclusivity at GCI. Welcome back from break. Every February, Canadians are invited to participate in Black History Month festivities and events that honor the legacy of Black Canadians, past and present. For 2019, the theme of the Government of Canada's Black History Month campaign is Black Canadian Youth, Boundless, Rooted, and Proud. This month, we will hear stories, memories, and calls to action from our GCI students and staff as we seek to honor our diverse society in Canada. Rugby, 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 girls varsity rugby. That's right, GCI. Spring is around the corner, and the coolest team in the school is calling all girls from all grades to come to be a part of the excitement. Our first meeting is today at lunch in room 223. Whether you're a seasoned vet or brand new to the sport, there is a spot for everyone on the pitch. Come on out today at lunch to room 223 to find out more. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, who can do this last one? Go ahead.
It's 16 plus 4 minus 9 minus 11.
Very nice. How many people got that? Good work. So we've got two negatives here. Notice that they became a positive. And then a positive and a negative here became a negative in front of the 9. Notice how we're only turning two signs in front of the same number and turning it into a number line question. And 16 plus 4 is 20. Minus 9 is 11. Minus 11 more is 0? Or how did we get that? I would go back and look. I think it's 0. Try it again if you got something. If anybody didn't quite get that. I think it works out to 0. Any questions?